Hello to my beautiful soul tribe and welcome to Roseology. I'm so thankful to have each and every single one of you here today. Of all the things you could be doing, you're here with me and I could not be more honored. Hopefully this video finds you in amazing spirits. So now that all the formalities are out of the way, this video I was intuitively led to do, and it's all about basically like our shadow side. So before I get into the reading, for those of you that aren't necessarily acquainted with what a shadow side is, I'm going to briefly explain the concept. So we all have a shadow, and it is simply the aspect of us that is hidden away in our unconscious. So we're usually completely unaware of our shadow because we don't identify with it. It's almost like the blind spots in our mirrors when we're driving, how we have almost no way of knowing that there's a car in a certain spot because it's not in our peripherals. We can't see it, but it's there nonetheless. We just have to really be observing and be aware to pick up on it. But our shadow side isn't as mundane as a car in a blind spot. Our shadow is our unconscious, that is kind of like the trash bin in our computers where we throw away or discard of the things that we ourselves or other people have deemed unacceptable. And we have discarded of these aspects or characteristics that we have so we can more easily be accepted by our peers, or society, or even ourself. And it's like that saying, kind of like out of sight, out of mind. So because we don't recognize that part of us that we've thrown away, we don't identify or relate to that part anymore. We completely have disassociated with it. We're in our minds, we're not that person, but it's not out of sight, out of mind, because it's still living and breathing and thriving. It's just in our unconscious, which can be like a dark, scary trash bin of different life experiences that are just kind of sitting there collecting. And we usually don't come across this part of ourselves ever again until it's reflected back to us in another human being, like our relationships. So sometimes when we're actually fighting with other people, like, we may say, oh my God, why are you so difficult? Or why are you so this? Or why are you so that to another person? But in actuality, we're probably fighting an aspect of ourselves. But sometimes it can actually be just a simple case of projection. And if we're lacking awareness, it can be difficult to see that we're projecting onto others. So if we're lacking awareness, it can be difficult to realize that because it's our shadow staring back at us, and it's repressed emotions, or as Carl Jung referred to it as, these are repressed weaknesses, shortcomings, and instincts. And the less that our shadow is embodied or acknowledged in our conscious life, the blacker and more denser it becomes. So this usually begins early on in our childhood when we're gradually being conditioned to renounce certain aspects of ourselves that aren't easily accepted or that aren't generally accepted by the public or our family, friends, peers, ourselves. And the more we ignore our shadow, the louder it gets, the bigger it grows. And our shadow gets its power from our refusal to acknowledge it. And sometimes that can wreak havoc in our life. So the shadow is actually not a bad thing. We've just labeled it as such. And it takes a real shift in our perspective on who we are to finally accept this version of ourselves. So the shadow can almost be looked at as like this bad kid that does bad things to get your attention, because it's the only way that it knows how to make you see it and ultimately see yourself, because that's the goal here. The shadow just wants you to acknowledge, hey, this is you. Like, you can't just say, this isn't me because I don't like it. No, this is you. Acknowledge it, accept it, because there's power in that. Okay, so we're going to be getting acquainted with our shadow self today. So this is not for the faint of heart, okay? This reading is for the people that really want to see the whole picture and the whole version of themselves, all parts included, the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty. And this is a very crucial step in our spiritual evolution, but you should only do this when you are ready, because it's never easy to see our shadow. Okay, so you guys know me. I cannot do all the work for you when it comes to these readings. No reader can, unfortunately. You have to be able to apply your own intuitive abilities, and yes, you have them. I don't care if you say that you do not have intuitive abilities. Yes, you do. I promise you do. It's just a matter of tapping into it. And because this is a general reading and not a personal one, your own personal intuition is greatly needed for you to be able to resonate with the message. So it'll be like we're doing this reading together. And to help you guys access your own intuitive abilities, I'm going to be offering a 60-second meditation that you can also use to help intuitively select a pile here, okay? So there's 3 piles here. So I have pile 1, pile 2, and pile 3 here. And basically, I'll be adding crystals to each pile 30 seconds through this meditation for those of you that would like to select piles with crystals on them. So we'll go on ahead and begin that meditation right now. All right, so I have added crystals to each of the piles here. So on pile 1, we have some selenite crystal. Pile 2, this is celestine. And pile 3, we just have a clear crystal quartz. So I'll give you guys 30 seconds to meditate with crystals on the piles. All right, so hopefully that meditation was enough time for you to get intuitively synced in. If not, feel free to go on ahead and pause the video. But for those of you that have already selected a pile, you can scroll down to select the timestamp to your pile in the description or the comment section down below. But again, thank you guys so much for visiting me. I cannot thank you all enough. But without further ado, let's go on ahead and meet your shadow. All right, and pile number 1, thank you so much for allowing me to do this reading for you. So let's go on ahead and get started and see who your shadow side may be, as well as a message that they have for you. So we're going to start off with this card right here. This is the card that is representative of who you are. So this is going to give me a little bit of an insight as to your personality type, okay? 10 of Wands. Okay. All right. So with the 10 of Wands, what I'm getting here is you are someone who not only can take a lot, but you've been through a lot. And another thing that I'm getting from this card is many things have tried to break you, but here you are standing, you know, still standing. And I'm also getting the sense that you've been tasked with a great purpose, but it is one that is very, very heavy. There's a lot of responsibility to it. There's a heaviness almost to it. And there are times when you have felt so alone and like giving up, but you keep on going. Like that's really what I'm getting from this card right here is like no matter what, no matter how tired and exhausted you get, no matter how hopeless the situation seems, you really keep going like you're a fighter. Even if you don't have a specific thing that you're fighting for, you're just someone that refuses to give up. Like for you, failure is the enemy. Failure is the thing that you're fighting. And like I said, I don't think it's like necessarily a conscious thing. I just think that like you're just, like I was saying, like the person that just does not give up. You refuse to give up. I also feel that for some of you, you're kind of the strong silent type. So I think that, so I think some of you keep your pain and struggles to yourself. But the thing is like, you're not alone. Like that's the thing is like, what I'm seeing here is this, there's something about these wings and this, scarab or this beetle holding up this eye here. And for me, what I'm seeing with that is I see a great and powerful being walking right beside you, or almost behind you in a sense. And this is where you get your incredible strength from. And I'm not talking about like physical strength. I'm talking about mental, emotional, spiritual strength. You have this amazing will, like you will yourself into not giving up. Like I said, I'm not sure that you have a specific goal in mind that you're necessarily conscious of. It's just you only know to keep going and not give up. It's like you can sense your destination and something pulling you towards it. As well as like this great being is also pushing you along the way. And you do have great spiritual responsibility that you've been given in this life. I also believe that some of you may have even volunteered to kind of carry this task or responsibility in this incarnation. So you're, what I'm just really getting from this Ten of Wands here is that you're just a very strong person, and you might not even realize it, All right, so let's go ahead and get to these 3 cards right here. So this card is going to be representative of exactly who your shadow is. So this is going to show me a few characteristics about your actual shadow self, okay? And we've got, look at that. We've got the 9 of Wands in reverse. Okay, so your shadow loves to create blockages for you. I don't think that your shadow side necessarily realizes that this is what it's doing. Your shadow feels caged in a sense, okay? So that's all it knows, is to create more cages in your life, or more situations and circumstances where you basically kind of feel trapped. Because when your shadow is deeply repressed or feels rejected by you and you're conscious, it blocks your own ability to completely plug in and to connect to the collective, to the whole, to spirit. Okay. And I'm seeing it block for some of you your crown chakra is what I'm seeing for sure. Is like, for some of you, that when you repress the shadow side, it definitely blocks your crown chakra, where, like I was saying, you're unable to plug in or connect to the collective and to spirit. So it's very difficult sometimes for you to connect with nature, other people, spirit, even yourself, I'm getting. And this may cause you to feel very alone and vulnerable. It's almost caging you behind this impenetrable wall that no one can get through, and you can't get out. Like, your shadow desperately wants to be understood and accepted, and your shadow really wants to connect with you, but there's a blockage there. So you keep rejecting your shadow and trying to contain it. And so your shadow is emulating you and your actions. So the more boundaries you place around your shadow, the more walls and barriers your shadow is going to create. And furthermore, that's just going to keep you from connecting. So your shadow is kind of bitter. They're upset. It's hurt, and at some point in your life, I believe an aspect of yourself was rejected or told that it needed to change to be accepted. And now there is a major disconnect within the self. And with this kind of being present, or, with this kind of disconnect of the self, life is always going to feel like this uphill 10 of Wands energy, like your shadow is a major element to unlocking your soul and life's purpose and you connecting to that, I'm saying. So let's go ahead and check out this next card here. So the very next card that we have is the 5 of Pentacles. And this card here is all about what happens when you ignore your shadow side, or what happens when you try to repress your shadow side. So basically, when you ignore your shadow side, you feel left out in the cold. Like I was saying, here, where you feel vulnerable, alone, and maybe even afraid sometimes, still feeling kind of that residual fear or rejection that's still lingering. For some of you, when you rejected your shadow side for the acceptance of others, you basically chose or prioritized others over yourself. Even though you shut down the shadow side, or the side of yourself that you thought was unlovable or odd or too different, because of this fear of others not accepting you, you brought on more fear. So because you can't rid yourself of a certain aspect of yourself, if that kind of makes sense. So it's you can't completely trash or let go of or reject an aspect of yourself, because it's you know what I mean? This is who you are. So you might be able to mask it or even suppress it, but it's still there, and because of that, there's almost this fear that lies dormant in you. It's like a fear that you can never be relieved of, because you're not being true to your nature and to yourself. The only way to relieve this fear is for you to confront it and be you at the end of the day. That's the only way to actually relieve this fear. And then the next card over here is how you actually tame or domesticate your shadow side. So let's go ahead and see. 4 of Wands. Okay. Yeah, it's exactly what I was talking about. It's all about returning home. It's time to really embrace your true nature. If you find yourself trying to keep up with others or their demands or their opinions, drop it, because it's only hurting you. At the end of the day, by you keeping your truth hidden, you are hurting your innermost being. You're hurting your inner child. You're hurting your I am presence, which is the essence of us and who we truly are. This is the most purest form of us and who we truly are. And this is our highest potential, you know? I say this all the time, you know, like every living being has its own tailor-made purpose in life. That purpose only you can carry out. No one else can do it for you. So I don't know why we as a people prioritize kind of like the status quo and fitting in so much, you know? Like you would think like we'd kind of know better by now, right? But I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure why we as people do that, because honestly, in a sense, it's very debilitating. It's extremely debilitating to us when we reject our own true nature. Like I was saying, you are a very strong individual, okay? And I feel as though many people can sense that you are unique. And for some, it's intriguing, but for others, it's intimidating because you stand out from the rest. So for the people that are intimidated by your light, they are going to try to bring you down most of the time. Like I was saying with this 10 of Wands over here, like people have tried, people have probably criticized you, maybe even tried to persecute you, or, you know, talk down about you, or whatever the case. But nothing, and I mean nothing, and no one is more powerful or precious than your light. There is nothing more sacred, nothing more priceless, nothing more precious than your own light. And if you can kind of see here with this 4 of Wands, she's actually holding a light right here. She's actually holding a light, and 2 lights here she's holding within her other hand. But when she brings these 2 aspects of herself together, they're holding this amazing great light, as you can see. And it's almost as if she's like holding a light in a sense with her other half, you know? And for me, that looks like you bringing your shadow into the light. It's really a need to make yourself whole, you know? Like the whole world needs you whole in order for you to complete your journey and your life's purpose. You have to be whole. If anyone has ever talked down on you or about you, that's probably something that's going to happen to you a lot, or that's probably something that has happened to you a lot. Because another thing that this 10 of Wands is saying is your light, your essence, your soul, who it is that you truly are, is your gift and also your burden. But it's only a burden if you allow it to be, or if you put others on a pedestal above yourself, or if you put acceptance and not being alone above yourself, then it will become your burden, otherwise known as your shadow. Okay, so let's go on ahead and check out you guys' oracle cards here to kind of see what else it is that we have going on here. All right, so the very first one that we have, look at that, feminine energy, huh? Okay, yeah, that's what I was getting with this 9 of Wands in reverse over here, is some of you are detached from yourself, nature, and even others. Like that feminine energy is everything, because it teaches us how to accept and love all things as well as all parts of ourself. This divine feminine energy, the sacred feminine, she teaches us to be in flow, to embrace ourselves, and not to need labels on everything, or not to stick labels on everything. You know, the divine masculine, he teaches us structure. Well, the divine feminine, she teaches us how to maneuver without structure. So she shows us how to embrace and love ourselves without conditions. So whether those conditions came from others or yourself, whoever it came from, the divine feminine, the feminine energy, she really teaches true love without conditions, and unconditional love, you know? Like, so she may be the figure that I'm seeing behind you over here with this 10 of Wands. I'm seeing a very powerful, great figure behind you that's really pushing you towards your purpose, pushing you towards your own destination. And it may be a feminine energy. Okay, so the very next card. Look at that. Look at that, stripping illusions. Yes. Okay, so she is here to strip away all of these walls and boundaries that you may have placed on yourself. And I'm talking about your divine feminine, this feminine energy, or this very great, powerful energy behind you. Is definitely they're trying to strip away all these walls and boundaries that you may have placed on yourself. Like this flower that's blooming over here on this card, it can't fully bloom in the confinements of something, you know? Like a flower is not going to fully bloom if it's like in a confined or a very closed space, you know? It needs to be free in order to truly bloom, and in order for its beauty to truly be appreciated, you know, it has to be free. And that's what I'm seeing here with you, is like you desperately have to be free. You have to free yourself of these ideas, these confinements, these restrictions, these conditions, you know, that you may have been taught or that you may have put on yourself. And then the very last card here that we have, Spirit of Isis. Wow, Triumph of the Goddess. Yes. Oh my God. Okay, exactly. So Isis, or actually Aset is her actual name. Isis is her Greek name, but Aset is her true name, and she may be your spirit guide or someone that you can actually truly call on, because this card talks about staying true to your heart and not giving up on what it is that we're here to do, as well as the power of genuine will, like I was saying with this Ten of Wands energy over here. It's not about force or domination, but an inner power that fuels you to continue, and it is growing within you now, is what this card talks about. It even says that this power is supported by living the right quest for you, not the path that another chooses, but the journey that genuinely lies within, that was genuinely made for you, like I was saying. So the feminine strength, kind of coupled with this endless determination, is fueled by love, and nothing less than love is going to be more powerful, or powerful enough to keep you going on your path after you've been tired and beat down from criticism, or you're too fatigued to respond to fear anymore. You have to really allow love to supply you with the energy and passion that you need to pursue your destiny, because your destiny is pursuing you too. Okay. And that's exactly what this card talks about, is not just you pursuing your destiny, but your destiny actually also pursuing you, looking for you. Okay. So this card comes to let you know that you will succeed in whatever it is that you put your mind to, and that the forces of love, growth, and divinity are in your corner, and nothing is more powerful than these. Okay. So you will succeed. Success is yours if you put your mind to it. All right, so my pile number ones, just know that success is yours. You just have to be free, be yourself, be you, be true to your nature, be who you are, be who you were born to be. That's the most important That's the most important thing for you to do. This is what your shadow side is really wanting to say to you. This is what your shadow side has been trying to say to you. But it's very natural for us to kind of suppress and reject and push down our shadow side, and not really give our shadow a voice. But our shadow as well as our light side, they both need voices, and we need the both of them to maintain this amazing balance of who we are and who it is that we're meant to be. We need this balance to help fuel us to complete our soul's journey and our soul's purpose, as well as our life's purpose. Okay, so this is all that I'm seeing for my pile number ones. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you guys come back to visit me sometime soon, and I'm going to go on ahead and move on to pile number two. All right, in pile number two, let's go ahead and take a look at your cards to see who your shadow side may be and a message that they have for you. Okay, so this very first card right here is going to give me a look as to who you are and your personality type. So let's go ahead and take a look. The Fool in reverse. Okay, so what I'm getting from the Fool in reverse here is you are someone that doesn't take a lot of risks. You prefer to know exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it. You're someone that really likes structure. I also feel that you're someone that does their best when you have like all the facts. Like, you're very practical, so you need a practical plan and a practical purpose, basically. So you probably aren't much of a creator or like a creative person. I kind of see you as someone that's more like a problem solver than anything. So you can kind of see what went wrong and where, and you can formulate solutions to fixing it. So, you strike me as somebody that definitely really takes their time with things. Like, you're patient and you're very cautious. And I think some of you would actually like to be more creative or flexible, maybe, and not so definitive all the time, but you're such a logical person, So it may be kind of like a struggle for you to kind of get to that like creative aspect of yourself, but I think you do have the ability to create. It just may not look like the quintessential like creativity that we see in others, like people that create music or works of art, things like that. So it might not be like that kind of generalized sense of creativity. Like I was saying, I believe you're a problem solver sort of person. You're kind of like, tell me the issue and I will provide you with a solution. But finding a solution is creating, okay? Like, that is creating right there, because people can't figure out a solution to a lot of things because they can't create a solution in their mind. They can't see a solution in their mind, that is actually creating right there. So I also get the sense that you're someone that prefers to be around the familiar. So you don't change too much about yourself. Like you probably still own or have things from like middle school or high school or something something like that you refuse to throw away. You're probably someone that would drive the same car for like 20 years as long as it's still working, because like I said, you're practical. And if you don't see a reason to discard of something or a reason to actually invest or buy something, you totally won't. Like, some people may think or call you a little bit rigid, but I guarantee you that many of you that have picked pile number 2 has a very good grip on your own life, and you know exactly what it is that you want. Okay, so let's go on ahead and take a look at this very first card. And this card right here is going to show me the different characteristics of your shadow side. Okay. Ooh, look at that. The Hanged Man in reverse. Wow. Okay. Okay. So yeah, your rigidity is your shadow side. So sometimes, that rigidity can turn into stubbornness. There's a light and there's shadow aspect to everything, right? So even rigidity or definitiveness can turn into stubbornness, and it can work against you. So possibly by keeping, the way it can work against you is possibly by keeping you from things, people, or places that you could benefit from or learn from. And I believe that at some point in your life, you develop the notion that not knowing or just being is a bad thing. I believe that maybe you developed at some point in your life the feeling or the idea that if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know something, or if you're just kind of being like this floater where you're just floating around, you really don't know what it is that you're doing, that's a bad thing. Like maybe you see that as lazy, or maybe you see that as unproductive, or maybe you see that as somebody that's not taking their life seriously, something like that. But either which way, there's like this negative connotation around it. And maybe in your childhood, some of you may have dealt with uncertainty from a parent or a parental figure. And because of that, maybe you may have fallen victim to their inability to have structure. I believe that may have kind of like caused you to almost like birth this need for structure into your world and environment, because you've seen in some way, shape, or form that at some point in your life, you have seen what indecisiveness and a lack of boundaries can do to someone in their life. And I think a part of you vowed not to become that. But in doing so, you've almost limited yourself as well, and even your life, because you need to sort of compartmentalize everything, and that's kind of closed your mind to many things, and this happens when we think we know all there is to know about something, or when we think we've got a grip on things, like I was saying with the Fool card over here. This may happen when we think we have a grip on things, but it's actually the need to control. It kind of turns into this issue of control, and that's kind of the shadow side of rigidity and stubbornness is a control issue. And your shadow was birthed in chaos, and so now it feels a fear or a distaste for a chaotic environment. So it believes it needs to control in order to keep order, and in order to find success in life, and in order to restore power and balance and control. Okay, so this next card over here is going to be showing me what happens to your shadow side when you ignore your shadow side. Okay, so look at that, 8 of Pentacles. Okay, yeah. Okay, so your shadow comes out in a way that is very controlling and possibly domineering, and maybe even a perfectionist. And it's like, who can live up to perfection? Like no one can. So this kind of becomes like a toxic cycle of not being able to reach your own standards. That's kind of what develops, is like this toxic cycle of, I can't reach these standards, no one else can reach these standards, so we all just keep feeling worse about ourselves, you know what I mean? So there may be people around you that feel as though you may be a very particular person, or like they may have to walk on eggshells around you, or they may feel as though they can never reach your level of acceptance. They can never reach your level of, okay, you did a good job. People may feel as though they can't please you, or they can't make you happy. And the stakes are too high. Like the pedestal is too high. This kind of environment it's not conducive for healthy relationships with others, and especially yourself. It's like your shadow side is almost setting up like this impossible standard, almost like setting you up for failure. So it's almost as if your shadow has recreated this environment of falling short and or chaos in a sense, So it's like the same environment that you have worked so hard to avoid is the same environment that your shadow side is creating because of this excessive need to control, this excessive need to stay away from chaos. You know what I mean? So the very next card over here is showing me how you tame or domesticate your shadow side. So let's go ahead and take a look. Look at that. Chariot in reverse. Wow. Look at that. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So yeah. So you're going to tame your shadow side by surrendering, by free falling into faith, by allowing the circumstances that don't need your attention to unravel as they may. So I'm not saying never get involved in anything ever again. You know, some things need your attention and other things don't. And it's all about having discernment and knowing and understanding which circumstances, which situations need your attention to detail and which ones don't. Just letting go and relinquishing control and trusting or having faith that things will develop as they will is what it is that you're going to need to do, because you're kind of in this rat race right now. When you try to control every detail, or when you try to control others, or when you try to force a certain outcome to come to fruition, you're in a rat race that you're never going to finish or win, because the universe doesn't need us to insert ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, the universe does not need us to insert ourselves in everything. Just like planet Earth. Planet Earth would honestly be better off without people. You know, like when we don't involve ourselves in with the earth and with nature does its own thing. It's self-sustaining. It can thrive on its own, survive and thrive on its own. And that's exactly how the universe and spirit is. The universe and spirit doesn't need us. You know what I mean? They don't need us, and they definitely don't need us to insert ourselves into everything. Actually, most of the time, the universe and spirit needs us to step back so they can work freely. Because when we intervene like this is almost a way of saying that we don't trust spirit. This is almost a way of saying that we don't trust the universe. We don't trust spirit, source, God, whatever it is you refer to it as. We don't trust this extraordinary being to handle the situation for our best outcome and our greatest and highest good. And that's us saying that we think we can do a better job. And you know what spirit does in that situation when we go, oh no, you know what? I can do a better job than you can, universe. You know what the universe does? The universe says, okay, I'm gonna step right on out the way and let you handle this since you think you can handle this. You know what I mean? Because that's how the universe is. It's how spirit is. Spirit is gentle. It is a great force, but it is gentle and does not work in chaos. So it will not work against you. Spirit is not going to work in any sort of situation where it is like an uphill battle, or where it's like, this is difficult. No, spirit and the universe is going to work in alignment. Spirit and the universe, it knows how to attract and to receive instead of forcing and doing. And you have to permit yourself to move out of the way. Okay. Like, forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself. You really need to forgive yourself for not always, maybe making the best decisions, or for not always being perfect, or for not knowing everything. You have to forgive yourself for that. That's the only way to domesticate your shadow side, okay? Is by setting itself and yourself free. There's too many restraints. There's too many restrictions. And at some point, I believe you felt as though you had your power stripped away from you. So now you have this like excess need for control. Like I said, it was born out of fear. But just remember that you are so far removed from when your power was taken away from you. You are not helpless. Sometimes surrendering is a show of true power, okay? It takes wisdom to know when to do and when not to do. All right, so let's go on ahead and take a look at your oracle cards to see what it is we got going on here. The very first one that we have is omens. Okay, yeah. So with omens, what I'm getting is I believe that you have convinced yourself that without your own involvement in things, everything will crumble or fail in a sense. And it's like you almost expect things to be unsuccessful without your involvement. But that's exhausting. Like, that's so exhausting, you know, to try and contain everything, or to try and be involved in everything going on. That is very exhausting. So don't do this to yourself anymore. You know, it's too much. You're human. You're just one person. It is much too much for you. You know, this is why we have spirit. This is why we have the universe. This is why we have our spiritual team of helpers, because we are human. Spirit knows that. Source knows that. And that's the reason why Source has given us the spiritual team of helpers, because we can't do everything on our own, you know, and that's okay. So the very next card that we have over here. Ooh, look at that. Forgiveness. You guys see that? Forgiveness. What was I just talking about, you guys? I was just over here ranting and rambling on about forgiveness and how extremely important it is for you to tame your shadow side. You have to forgive yourself. That's amazing. Yeah. You have to forgive yourself, and whoever else you may feel took your power from you and left you vulnerable, you have to forgive, because until then, you could possibly become the person that's stripping others of their power because you don't deem them worthy enough or capable enough to figure things out on their own. So just like what may have happened to you where your power was stripped away, you may in turn become that person that is stripping others of their power without this forgiveness there. You know, if you don't forgive, this has a huge possibility of happening where you could become that person to other people. So it's very, very, very important to make sure that you forgive yourself and forgive anyone else that you may feel has kind of taken or stripped your power at one point or another. Okay, and then the very next card, or the very last card that we have, look at this. Divine Guardian, protection of the winged mother. Okay, you guys, I kid you guys not. This card is all about learning to let go and trusting in your unfoldment for the greatest good. Okay, so you may be required to embrace something completely unfamiliar. Okay, like I was saying, you don't like the unfamiliar with this Fool card over here in reverse. You really don't like the unfamiliar, but that's exactly what the Divine Guardian talks about. It talks about you may be required to embrace something completely unfamiliar, and this may be uncomfortable for you. Okay, so you may fear losing love, support, safety, or friendship, and this opportunity only presents itself when you are ready. That's very important for me to make sure that I am saying very clearly here that this card only presents itself when you are ready for that uncomfortability, when you're ready for this transition. Okay, so this is a very significant time on your spiritual path and your journey. You're growing into you're literally growing into new consciousness, and life doesn't always have to be fixed or clear for you to be safe. Okay, you just have to know that all is well and everything and everyone you love is protected. This was a really amazing reading, but it's definitely going to be very important for my pile number 2s here to really try your hardest to really relinquish that need to control and that need to assert power and assert your own will. You know, like, you don't have to do that. You are not powerless. Okay, you're not helpless. Whatever happened where you may have felt stripped of your own power, that is no longer you. That moment has passed. That moment has gone, you know? So that is no longer you. And it's time to release that feeling, okay? Forgive yourself, forgive others. That the way you are not in turn becoming that same person as someone else. You know what I mean? So it's very, very important for you to definitely forgive. But this is all that I'm saying for my pile number 2s. Thank you guys so much for coming here and allowing me to do this reading for you. Hopefully you guys come back to visit me soon. And I'm going to go on ahead and move on to the last pile number 3. Okay, in pile number 3, let's go on ahead and take a look at your cards to see who your shadow side may be, as well as maybe even a message from your shadow side. Okay, so this very first card is going to be giving me a glimpse into your personality type and who you are and your type of energy. Okay, so this very first card here is the Knight of Cups. All right. So what I'm getting from this Knight of Cups here is you're a very giving individual. You are really here to you're there to offer every part of yourself to the ones that you love. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if people described you as someone that would give the shirt off their back to help another person in need. And I think it makes you feel good to kind of save the day or like perform some sort of like good deed, you know? And I also feel that you are someone that looks for things to celebrate or be happy about versus allowing things to upset you or lower your own vibration. So you're not a very pessimistic person. And that's kind of a magical quality about you that you possess, is you're able to see some form of good in the bad. Even if there's only a small amount of good in a person or a situation, you can detect that. And that's where you like to kind of focus your sights. And I feel like you're the type of person that sees pessimism and negativity as almost like a wasteful investment of energy. So like being negative, like you look at it as like being negative won't get you anywhere, or we can cry and feel bad about this later, but what do we need to focus on right now to push through and get through what we need to get through? So it's kind of like your focus is always on pushing through when times get tough. You know, like they say uncomfortability breeds change, but for you, it kind of invokes an energy in you that I believe becomes quite protective and determined. And I also feel as though some of you that have picked pile number 3, you may every now and then fall victim to your own emotions. So like your emotions seem to kind of wax and wane here to me, and there can be quite a substantial difference in the range of emotions that you feel. So it's like you're able to be there for others and give your 2 cents about how something or someone is being handled. But when it comes to dealing with your own life and your own emotions, you can sometimes struggle to maybe see the light at the end of the tunnel is what I'm getting here. So it's like, you're able to really help everyone else out, but when it comes to yourself, you may struggle with that a little bit. That's not too uncommon. It's not something that anything to be upset or ashamed about or anything like that. Okay, but let's go on ahead and move on to this next card. So this card right here is representative of who your shadow actually is. So I'm going to be able to get a glimpse of who your shadow side actually is with this card right here. So we've got the 2 of Wands. Okay. Yeah. So I'm seeing 2 things here with this 2 of Wands. So your shadow side was birthed in anxiety and doubt and stress, I see. And I can see some of the characteristics of your shadow is worrying or stressing about things that may not have even happened yet. Almost like anticipating problems, difficulties, pain, fear, issues, drama, challenges, is what I'm getting here with this 2 of Wands. And then the second thing that I'm getting here with this 2 of Wands. So for my other half, the thing is your shadow can trap you almost with your consciousness. Okay. So in other words, like I was kind of saying with this Knight of Cups here, you try to really maintain focus on the light and the good in people and situations while almost ignoring the red flags sometimes and the cautionary tales that you may hear or see. So if you're not careful, your shadow side can almost romanticize people, places, things that are harmful or maybe even counterproductive to you. So it's like your shadow has this perplexity to it where it sees the good in the bad and the bad in the good. And this really fuels an anxious environment because it's almost like, well, what do I trust? Like, what can I trust? And that's the thing. I believe that some of you have maybe even noticed that about yourself, where it's like, man, like I really saw the good in this person, or I really saw the good in this situation, and it really ended up being bad, So it may cause you to feel a little naive within yourself, or it may even cause you to feel like I have a bad judging character, but don't feel that way about yourself. Don't beat yourself up about that at all. Okay. And this next card right here is what happens when you kind of ignore your shadow side. Okay, so we're going to see exactly how your shadow side is when you try to repress it. And the card here is, Temperance. Okay. Yeah, so even when there's nothing to worry about, I see that your unconscious or your shadow side is almost like working to create scenarios to worry about. Or when there is nothing to romanticize or idolize about someone or something, your unconscious works in the background to find reasons for you to put them on a pedestal. And it's like your unconscious is constantly working to bring things into your conscious frame that aren't in alignment with the truth or reality. And honestly, reality and truth, it's all subjective, but it's not in alignment with your truth or your reality, what it is that you're seeing, what it is that you're witnessing, what it is that you're experiencing. Okay. And like I was saying, this can really create a very anxious environment of what do I believe, and your shadow is definitely kind of like a trickster here, and you have to be consciously 2 steps ahead of it because, like I said, he's a trick, your shadow is a trickster and a pretty good trickster at that. And it's very subtle. That's the thing. It's difficult to pick up on the fact that your shadow is working in the background, but that's what makes your shadow so convincing to your conscious. And so it's almost like your shadow and your consciousness work together to create these illusions where you only see the good in the bad or the bad in the good. Okay. So this next card over here is basically how to tame your shadow side. So let's go on ahead and take a look. Ace of Wands. All right, so discernment. That's one thing I heard like right away with this Ace of Wands is discernment. Your spirit is the only way to tame your shadow, basically. This Ace of Wands here is screaming for you to merge with spirit. Align with your own energy, because energy cannot and will not ever lie. It's our ego and it's our consciousness that when it gets involved, it starts to blur the lines between what is factual and everything else. So the more sensitive that you become to energy, the easier it's going to be be for you to sense what is actually happening. So you'll be able to actually distinguish if you're feeling something because you want to versus you feeling something because that's what's actually going on or that's what's actually happening. And another thing that I believe this ace is saying here is to focus on one thing at a time. So if you're really conflicted about something, so like let's say a relationship, for example, and this is just an example, but let's just say that you've just met someone and you guys are really hitting it off, but there's a few similarities between this new person and maybe like your ex. And so this anxiety starts to build because you may feel like, well, I don't want to be fooled by this person, or you may feel like I don't want to shut down what could potentially be a great relationship by being too nitpicky. So you see what I'm saying? Like, if you find yourself in these kind of situations where it's kind of like you have to make like these really big decisions because, it could have some sort of effect on you and your life and your circumstances, then really meditate on them. Like tap into your own energy, okay? Because when you tap into your own energy, you're able to get a really good and accurate read on what it is that's conflicting you. And another thing I'm seeing is to not ignore the sensations it is that you're getting, acknowledge it, allow them to be heard, because the sensations that you're getting, I really feel like you could definitely be a sensitive. And if you are an actual sensitive or something like that, then the ego and the conscious is extremely toxic when it comes to sensing, as well as it's very inaccurate when we involve the ego and when we involve the conscious. Because I'm feeling a sense here, and I was almost feeling it with this Knight of Cups, but I wasn't necessarily sure. But now I'm kind of definitely feeling for sure like you could be a sensitive. All right, so let's go on ahead and get to you guys' oracle cards. All right, so the very first one that we have, you guys, look at this. Psychic development, you guys. Psychic development. Oh my God, I'm freaking out. That's crazy. Okay, so that right there is confirmation for sure. That's exactly what that's exactly what this Ace of Wands was saying. And that's just what I was saying as well, because of this Ace of Wands. It's like, this basically confirms that you are definitely like a sensitive or a psychic. But either which way, you need to own in and develop these God-given abilities it is that you have, because this is what's going to tame your shadow. Your shadow really runs rampant when you're disconnected or misaligned with spirit. And this happens to everyone, but for the sensitives and psychics out there, it is like cutting the cord to your own lifeline when you're not aligned with spirit. Okay, so this is actually very detrimental and very dangerous, very unhealthy or toxic even for my psychics and my sensitives out there to not be connected to or misaligned with source. It's so extremely important for my psychics, my sensitives, people out there that are very spiritually inclined to be connected to that, because you are instinctively structured to revert back to spirit for guidance in this incarnation and in this life. Okay, the very next card that we have, letting go. Okay, so there's something interesting going on with this card here. You see how there's two birds here. We've got this like white bird, and then we got the black bird. And then there's a sun up top. Okay, so what I'm seeing with that is like with this light bird and this dark bird, it's almost like the conscious and the unconscious, or the light and the shadow, or the higher self versus the animal brain. And the sun above them, for me, is representative of illumination as well as spirit. That's usually what the sun means to me when I see tarot and the oracle cards. We can even see a sun over here within psychic development, and that's what I'm getting. I'm getting a lot of this almost kind of like illumination when it comes to spirit. When you're spiritually connected, there's a lot of illumination here. Okay, so for me, this is another call to release or let go of kind of that debate that you may have, that back and forth that you may have with your own conscious and unconscious, and really rely on spirit to guide and illuminate your own reality and your own truth that is conducive and beneficial for you and your own well-being. Okay, and the very last card that we have here, magic and ritual, crafting a sacred practice. Okay, yeah. Spirit is screaming at this point that you are a sensitive or a psychic in some sort of or some sort of spiritually inclined person that relies heavily on spirit. And when you're lacking that guidance, it can be destructive. And that's with everyone. But like I was saying, this is especially true for my psychics and my sensitives out there. So you definitely need to craft some sort of sacred practice. And it doesn't need to be anything elaborate unless you want it to be. You know, you can build up to something elaborate. But really, you know, when it comes to these sacred practices, basically we create these sacred practices so that we can strengthen our own skills in the spiritual realm, so that we can strengthen our own connection to the spiritual realm. So that's really what these you know, daily practices are for. So that could be like meditating for 5 minutes a day, being more mindful in your day-to-day, meditating, praying, being around nature more, anything that kind of centers you or grounds you or brings you into that present moment is really what you're going to want to spend a lot of your time doing, because that's really going to strengthen this connection that you have, that you already really have to the spiritual realm. So, you know, you need kind of repetitive, consistent practice. So like I was saying, that could be meditating for 5 minutes a day or every day, to just being more mindful in your day to day. So it's really whatever it is that you want it to be, but it's definitely more so important is not necessarily what it is, more so as the, you know, consistency of it. You just really want to make sure that you're consistently practicing these sort of spiritual kind of rituals. Yeah, this is really all that I'm saying for my pile number 3. Is this really kind of took a turn for me here, but if there's one thing that I feel like your shadow side is definitely saying is like, you gotta connect back to spirit. You have to connect back to spirit, because, you know, without that, the shadow side is becoming more denser, more blacker, darker, and it really just causes so much confusion and so much anxiety and so much stress, so much fear, so much doubt, the things it is that are really toxic to our own well-being. Okay, so this was an amazing reading, actually, this pile number 3 here, but this is all that I'm saying for you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming to my channel and allowing me to do this reading for you. Hopefully you guys come back to visit me soon, and I'll be back soon. All right, bye guys.